This is Distant Replay, the podcast that goes back in time to relive all the greatest events that we witnessed in sports. From upsets, to championships, to cultural moments, we discuss it all. Coming up on today's episode.
I want to say to each of you, simply and directly, I am deeply sorry for my irresponsible and selfish behavior I engaged in.
Glad to have you back on the Distant Replay podcast. I am Ben George. He's Mike Noto. We're continuing our discussion on the Tiger Woods documentary that's on HBO Max, if you're looking for it. We went through part one, which is on our website now, also on whatever podcasting app you're using, YouTube as well. You can find it there. You can go back and listen to that one if you haven't yet. But now we focus on part two, which for most people will be the part they're looking forward to, because it's all about the scandal, all about the affairs, all about the downfall. People love the downfall, Mike, and that's what we're talking about primarily here today. We get some other stuff with the military, also the comeback. Some interesting things in here overall, but this is the episode everybody was waiting for.
They sort of gave a little bit of an outline of what the documentary was going to entail, right? And the second part, we were promised, hey, it's going to get into the details and the sordid details of his philandering and stuff like that. So you circled this date and this episode more so than the first one. I think a lot of people did that. Yeah,
when Rachel Yucatel came on to tease the end of the last episode, you were ready for this one for sure, and I think everybody was. So we're going to go through it tonight. Got some thoughts overall. I didn't learn a whole lot new. As I told you before in the last one, I've read the last Tiger book that came out that really got into a lot of these details on him. And I read a couple books about Tiger, so I've kind of know more than I think most people that haven't dug into it a little bit. But some things in here that maybe open my eyes as well. Before we get started, though, again, distantreplaypodcast.com is our website. You can find both episodes will be posted there, plus all the games we watch there. But connect on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube as well. Over 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, by the way, Mike. So thanks to everyone that has subscribed over there, and we appreciate you following along.
Yeah, it's been great. The people who subscribed on YouTube, the interaction we've had in the comments, can't thank you enough. I'm not speechless, as you guys know, if you listen to this podcast, but just appreciate it so much and looking forward to bringing you some new content every week.
Yeah, so let's jump into this episode 2 on Tiger, again, airing on HBO. And it opened up, and it's a strong open. And I'm a huge Wright Thompson fan, Love everything he does. His writing, his narration, his storytelling is superb. I don't think there's anybody that does it better than him in sports. And he opens up talking about the military stuff. And I think he wrote a big piece, I think, for ESPN, the magazine, about this kind of time in Tiger's life post his father passing away, the things, the kind of the demons he was dealing with, plus like the idea of, do I want to kind of follow my father and learn more about his life and try to connect with him through the military stuff. So we get a little bit of that early on. And I think for most people, they don't realize just how deep into it Tiger was and how close he actually was to walking away from golf, it seems, by all the reporting, that he almost just stepped away from his career and went after this full time.
How deep into it he was stuck out to me. The fact that he risked his health to do it was a surprising aspect of it for me, right? Knowingly. Went into it with his eyes open that he could get hurt. It could impact his ability to play golf moving forward, and didn't seem to care much. Also, bridging off what you said before, Wright Thompson is awesome. I'm baffled that ESPN, who gives a show to anyone, how they've never figured out how to sort of cultivate a show around him. Is he still at ESPN?
Yeah, he still does a lot of their
I don't know how. I think about all the people who have had shows at that network over the years, and think about how much better of a storyteller Wright Thompson is than all of them combined.
He did try briefly. There was a show on SEC Network, which I don't know, you probably didn't really watch. You're probably not just surfing across SEC Network on your downtime, but a show called True South that I think he went through with a couple people they produced. They went to it's kind of like a dive, go tell the story of traditions and family and food in the SEC and like a lot of the college towns. So that was on, and I think it lasted, I don't even know how many episodes they did. They maybe did a couple seasons, I don't know, but I've only caught about 4 or 5 of them. So that's like the only thing that I did see him do. But like something on a bigger scale would make a lot of sense.
Yeah, and I wasn't aware of that show on the SEC Network, but and you hit it on at the end of what you just said there, Ben. I'm talking about something they put some money behind, some promotion, put it on a network that, no offense, people are going to watch.
Relax, buddy.
But you know what I mean?
I know what you mean. I know what you mean.
Yeah. So, but he's an amazing talent.
Yeah. So we get that early on. And again, listen, I think I can go ahead and say it here early on with this military stuff. I just think they crammed so much stuff into this one episode that, and I guess it's kind of we're going to go hit the big points of Tiger's career, but not give you a little bit of detail on them. So it's not just kind of hey, let's kind of scan over these things. But, the military part, there's so much more to like all the Navy SEAL training he did. They kind of touched on it, but I mean, he was really into this training, and they did talk about how it did affect his knee, and it ended up that many people think that's what caused the knee problem was this training. But again, they could have spent 30, 45 minutes alone on military, but it's just kind of the beginning, like, hey, this is going on in Tiger's life before we move into Rachel, you could tell. So I thought they could have done that one a little more justice, but it is what it is. But we quickly get into the stuff that most people care about. And this is kind of the beginning of the downfall of that military part, just because of the injury. And now he's battling the health along with everything else. But around this time, it's very interesting because...
Hey, Ben, before we get into one other thing to put a bow on the military stuff, I found a very interesting parallel with Jordan here. Did you or no?
What was it?
That when his father died, he started getting into things that his dad liked.
Yeah, good point.
And even thought about giving up golf, like Jordan gave up basketball to pursue baseball. I just thought that was a very interesting parallel. I'm surprised they didn't bring that up.
Yeah, that's a good point. And because during this time, I mean, Tiger's hanging out with MJ.
Exactly.
And Charles a lot more. So I think he's kind of, he can connect with Michael on a level that nobody else can, in terms of that superstardom, the camera always being on you. Everything you do is documented. And probably more so for Tiger because he came along a little bit after MJ. So he had a little more of that limelight. There's more media attention when he came through, but also at times when they start going to Vegas. And this is kind of where some of the but this is kind of where his lifestyle changes and he kind of starts enjoying the fruits of his labor, so to speak. But I thought it was interesting. They had the VIP hostess on there, Tiffany Masters, who kind of talked about a lot of this, but I still think the funniest thing from that is when he's asking, because you're talking about Tiger is he went to Stanford. His whole life's been golf since day one. He doesn't get out much, doesn't interact with too many females. But I think he asked, and I don't know if it was Charles. I think it was actually Derek Jeter, maybe an MJ, but whoever it was. How do I go up and talk to these girls? And they said, just tell them you're Tiger Woods. It's that simple.
Yeah, really. I mean, that was a funny line, by the way, and you could picture Jordan saying that, which makes it funnier.
Right.
And they sort of characterized Tiger when he hung out with Jordan and Barkley on these Vegas trips as kind of being like the nerd of the group. Yeah. And you could picture that. We've all been to Vegas. We've all been out with friends, and you have that one friend that's maybe a little less socially comfortable than all the rest of them. And that was Tiger Woods in this group. Okay. And I thought the Tiffany Masters you mentioned, her perspective was great because she described what Tiger was like early on when he first started coming to Vegas and sort of how his attitude and probably the best way to put it would be his confidence grew in that environment as the years went on.
Yeah. Yeah, once you become more comfortable with it, there's definitely an air of confidence. And it probably didn't take him long, a guy like that, to gain that confidence once he was in that situation a few times. But, so obviously this is around the time he's got Elin that he's in a relationship with, and things on the surface appear to be really good for Tiger. He's got this family. They're starting a family. He's got the beautiful wife who's there with them, supportive. He says that she provides the balance. But then we really kind of dive into the dark details about this time, like after the kind of the Vegas stuff starts happening. But you had Neil Bolton on, who was a National Enquirer. What did you think about Neil? Did he rub you the wrong way at all?
I think he's the guy you expect that works at the National Enquirer. You know what I mean? Sort of unapologetic.
Yeah.
In it for the scoop. He's kind of exactly what I think of when I think of a reporter for the National Enquirer, for better or for worse.
Enjoying the downfall, watching the world just burn around him. Yeah. Well, the first story, and I don't know if you know all the details of this one. The hostess at Perkins, which is a little restaurant that was down the road from where he lived in Florida. He began this affair with one of the waitresses there, Mindy Lawton. Really, I guess, passionate affair by all accounts. Whatever else. They had this relationship, multiple meetings between the two of them. But the details were about to come out, but Tiger Woods' team was able to kind of quiet everything by agreeing and credit National Enquirer's, their ownership group that also owned Men's Fitness. Did you know those two were in the same family of publications?
I did not. That was news to me.
Well, Men's Fitness said, hey, listen, we'll wipe this story clean. All we need you to do is appear on the cover of Men's Fitness for us, give us the sit down, the interview, and they'll do a whole feature on you, and that'll be it. Which
remember when people used to buy magazines because of who was on the cover?
I know, right? That seems like anybody that's listening to this that's probably younger than 25 might be like, what are you talking about buying magazines? But that was a big deal. You could sell a lot of magazines with Tiger Woods on the cover, and that's what they shot for. They wanted the money of that, and it worked out. Both sides were very happy with that outcome, and for Tiger, he kind of avoided that first big issue and problem in his relationship.
Yeah, and it's kind of like we do some true crime episodes, and I'm not equating what Tiger Woods did with a crime, but the whole feeling of getting away with something, right? I mean, he got away with this, and I think it emboldened him to feel a little bit invincible moving forward with some of the other stuff he got into. The Perkins waitress, by the way, is what she became known for. I was not aware of her actual name until this documentary. If there's two people you knew from this scandal from a woman's standpoint in the media back then, it was the Perkins waitress and it was Rachel Yucatel. It was these two that primarily I remember the names. And have you ever been to a Perkins, by the way?
No, I've not.
You've never? Okay, so they're in Florida. Very good breakfast spot. It's like a better version of a Friendly's is probably the better way to put it.
Which probably a lot of people listening have never been to Friendly's either.
Yeah. So IHOP.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
Better version of an IHOP, maybe.
There you go.
That's probably the best way to put it.
Okay.
Look, I didn't realize all this started with, and this got nipped in the bud the way it did with the Men's Fitness cover. This story was new to me.
Yeah. So to your point, the Perkins waitress, Mindy Lawton, and Yucatel were the two bigger names. Now, bunch of other girls came out, during this scandal saying, hey, they all wanted a piece of the limelight eventually once it became known that, hey, there were so many people involved. But yeah, I think Rachel Yucatel, which, why she's the one they reached out to for this documentary, was probably the primary person in this whole scandal and the reason why things blew up the way they did. But, we get some perspective of kind of where he is in his career, because this is all about his rise, his fall, and his rebirth. But during this time frame, he's playing some of his best golf. Around early 2000s was his best. But the big tournament that everyone still talks about, and I still think doesn't get enough credit for, was that 2008 U.S. Open, in which he beat Rocco Mediate. And, the fact that he played through that, and there were some good details in that story, hearing from Steve Williams' caddy, about how much pain he was in, which we could all see on TV. It's pretty obvious. But the shot that he hit off the cart path, where Steve said he heard like a crack in his knee. And again, this is a guy that had no ACL, but also had a couple cracks in his leg, right, in the bone. So he was literally kind of holding himself up with one leg and playing in a major at the highest level, the toughest major in terms of conditions and the way the course plays. And Steve Williams says, hey, man, are you sure we need to go on? I mean, you're thinking about your career, jeopardizing your career. And it's essentially like, no, fuck you. I'm winning this tournament.
Yeah, and that's Tiger Woods able to compartmentalize is a big part of this episode that people talk about. So he's able to compartmentalize the womanizing. He's able to go home to Elin with a smile on, maybe like nothing's going on. And in this case also, he's able to compartmentalize the pain and put it out of his mind when he's swinging the golf club. And hey, Rocco Mediate, I forgot about him, but he seems like a pretty cool guy, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's a very laid-back guy.
I like him, man. Very breath of fresh air. Even I remember 2008 when this was going on, being like, man, this guy seems like a good guy.
Yeah, I think a lot of people were pulling for him, wanting him to win, not just because they were pulling against Tiger, but because he was such a likable guy. And very unexpected for him to be in that position and be going toe-to-toe with Tiger. And it's just remarkable what Tiger was able to do in that tournament because of the health. And I think we had a pretty good idea, but I don't think we knew just how bad it was until these stories have come out after the fact and what we saw from these guys, because we don't even talk about the fact, and they didn't bring it up in the documentary. Did you realize that the play they went to a playoff, and the playoff was 18 holes? Did you realize that?
I remembered that.
That's a huge deal.
I actually did remember that was a full 18 holes.
Yeah, and that's I think they kind of left out that detail. I think most golf fans remember that, but the fact that not only did he play 4 rounds like that, he had to play a 5th round against Rocco one-on-one essentially, and was able to win that. Pretty incredible the way that finished. And I think that was maybe his greatest performance ever. But when you think about it, around everything else that was happening in his life, kind of diminishes what he accomplished there because of everything he was doing off the course. But in terms of actual play, I think that might be one of his greatest 5 days. For sure. Because where it ranks in the Tiger moments power rankings is probably 4th, right? You got the 97 Masters, you got the event right after his father died, right? You got the scandal, and then you have the 2008 US Open. You know what I mean? So that's the way I look at it as far as what I think of when I think of Tiger Woods. Yeah, not necessarily in that order, but the 2008 US Open's definitely last. Well, I like that you're bringing out the Tiger Woods power rankings on the show. Maybe that's a Minnesota idea. Well, I think I would definitely disagree with you on some of those. We don't have to go down that path today, but there's so many of them there that you could make. Yeah, you're like a nerd golf fan, so you're like, oh, well, his putt on the 6th at Torrey Pines. What about the amazing 2018 Tour Championship? Remember that, Mike? Yeah, you probably don't, but like stuff like that. Yeah. So around this time too. So this is when Rachel Uchitel kind of comes onto the scene about this time as well. Yeah. So, by the way, this has only been, 10 years? And I'm not going to take any shots at the way she looks, but it's amazing how much different she looks today versus 10 years ago. Yeah, exactly. So I don't know if who knows what she's been through in the last 10 years. I haven't heard much about her in the interim. So I'll leave what she looks like now, I'll leave alone. But what I will say is back then, she was not ugly. No, she was very attractive. There's no question about it. And she was the focus of Tiger's eye at that point. And they met. I mean, she was working in New York in a club or something. And, they met. She meets a lot of people, a lot of stars, she said. And I don't know, Mike, this whole episode is just odd to me how so many women, and I don't know, maybe men do this too, but it's just so odd to me that so many of these women just fell in love with Tiger and thought they were the one. And, this is a guy that's in a marriage. He's traveling all over the country. It always fascinates me that these people get so attached. And I'm sure it's because you see the money, you see the fame, and you feel like you're part of that. But, you hear the same story from every single person on this show, starting with Uchitel, that they felt like they were in a serious relationship with Tiger and in love with Tiger. You hit it right on the head. That's the unique part of this, is they all felt that they were the one, that he made them all feel special. I could be wrong. I still have never heard any of these women say anything negative about him. That's well, yeah. I mean, I think the one was, I didn't get anything out of this but a broken heart. But yeah, I mean, like that's all, nothing in terms of like his character and stuff, really. Yeah, exactly. It's, that Uchitel incident and the National Enquirer story. Yeah, we'll get to that here. Sort of led to all these other women coming forward. But yeah, when all these women individually, for you who don't remember back in the day, they all started getting interviewed individually, right? And they all would basically say the same stuff. Like they were heartbroken. They loved the guy and had nothing bad to say about him. Yeah, it was really odd. But Uchitel the one that it all blew up on. And the relationship started. Her and Tiger got together for the first time. Then, she tells her side of it as, he was unable to sleep a lot of times, didn't have a... She seems like she's much more in tune with him personally, it seems like, than maybe he is with Elin. And it really annoyed me the way she said Elin, which I don't know what that was about. Why would she say Elin? Has anybody ever pronounced her name that way? I've heard Ellen, but not Elin. Elin. Driving me crazy. But so Tiger invites her out to Australia. He's going out to play the Australian Masters, gets a big endorsement fee to show up, be a part of the tournament, whatever else. And he says, I'm not going to be able to sleep unless you come out here. Now, I don't know how much of this is honesty from Tiger, how much he's sleeping at night. I don't know. He probably is still in some pain and discomfort at times. So who knows how much of that's true. And, he's taking Ambien a lot to try to get to sleep. So maybe there's some of that. Needs some different time zone. But she shows up and, she says that they're pretty relaxed about everything. And they kind of push how much they want to be secretive about this thing. And the choir's right on top of it, as you would expect. And they have somebody out there, and somebody gets on the elevator with her and goes up and kind of, discovers that she's there and why she's there. And it all blows up. But the part was Tiger comes back, and it blew my mind. I don't think I've heard this part, but Tiger actually got her on the phone with Elin, and they both convinced Elin there was no relationship there. He said, look, I got a story. There's a story coming out. There's nothing to it. Here, talk to this girl that's also a part of the story. She'll tell you the same thing.
I didn't realize that. So you're saying that's not in any of the books that you read?
I don't remember that part of it, no.
Yeah, I don't remember that ever coming out. I didn't realize the timeline where the National Enquirer story came out and it wasn't a big deal. That I didn't realize. And it didn't become a big deal until obviously what would happen on that Thanksgiving night. But the whole part about getting Elin, sort of telling her, hey, look, Rachel's an acquaintance. There's nothing going on. Let's talk to Rachel about it. That's a wild move.
Right. I mean, that's pretty bold to say that and get them on the phone together and just lie directly. And this
shows how much he trusted Rachel. You could tell, though. And
I think too, like you say this, and they'd say the story didn't blow up that much. Now I don't think it did. I also think it was kind of one of those where, like, it's a National Enquirer, right? You always take a National Enquirer story with a grain of salt. I don't know how much they're still on the scene anymore. I have no idea, but they were a pretty big deal around this time, and especially earlier. And I think it's just kind of like those. Oh well, he's photographed some fuzzy photos with someone. We don't know if it's him or not. Much like the photos of the Perkins waitress, where they really didn't have anything because they got his car, but you can't tell who's inside of it. So it's kind of one of those like, well, I don't know. But it wasn't like it was months. I mean, this was like a week or two had passed when the Thanksgiving incident came. So it wasn't like, this thing had simmered down completely and then everything else blew back up. I mean, we're still, when you look back at it, the big picture, we're still right in the middle of this thing when Thanksgiving rolls around.
Yeah, it all, like a crescendo, it all leads to this Thanksgiving night incident. And, you could say there's a pre-Tiger Woods life, this Thanksgiving incident and post.
Dude, this is one of the wildest sports stories ever, right? I mean, thinking back on it, and I remember watching the Iron Bowl that year. This was Thanksgiving weekend, and I remember the Iron Bowl was being played that weekend. I remember CBS kept cutting in with these updates on Tiger being part of this car accident. And, I think at the time, nobody suspected anything outside of, hopefully everything's okay. It's kind of an odd timing, wrecking right outside your home. Very weird, but still nothing, doesn't seem like anything sinister is going on.
Yeah, the most puzzling part was what you just mentioned. You're like, how the hell did this guy get into an accident right outside his house? Like, what happened? That's the only thing that kind of made you think maybe there was more, more to the story, but you didn't really think, you didn't think it was scandalous at the time.
No, but we've got the details since. I don't know that. I think the details have pretty much been nailed down. I guess we don't know everything that's happened, but yeah, I mean the fact that she discovered. So he passes out because he's still taking all this medication, and I think you could tell says he texts her before he falls asleep, and then Elin discovers the phone and opens it up and sees like this text message. So she replies back, and kind of sneakily, hey, when am I going to see you again? Boom, gets a response. Okay, going to call. And calls and hears it's Rachel on the other line. So pretty good move there. Pro move by Elin to do that and call him out. And then from that point, I guess Tiger wakes up in the middle of this kind of, medication-induced sleep that he's in. And he's in a daze, running out of there and trying to get away from her. And from
I gotta get out of here.
Yeah, from Holocaust, the Taiwanese animation or whatever it was amazing. By the way,
yeah, it was.
But yeah, she chases him out of the driveway, and that's I think
with a golf club. The symbolism in that,
and I think they kind of nailed it in the animation. It might not be accurate, but the fact that he's probably kind of dazed and looking around, watching her chase after him, and then just didn't see where he was going, and then boom, tried to accelerate out of there and crash right next to his house, which is crazy. But yeah, I mean, yeah, we heard that she broke the window to get him out of there, but in actuality, she broke the window while she was chasing him. Just an all around, like one of the craziest stories you'll ever hear.
Yeah, it was great. Once the details started to get filled in, you're like, that's why he got in a car wreck right outside his house. His wife was chasing after him with a golf club.
Dude, and his mom being in the 911 call was crazy too. Hearing her in the background, what's happening? Like you can just picture all this going on in this really affluent neighborhood in Florida.
Yeah, remember, this is Thanksgiving night, so.
It's crazy, dude.
Had his mom over for Thanksgiving.
Unbelievable. So that's when everything blew up. This is kind of the beginning of the downfall. And the other crazy part about this too is seeing Fox News doing reports, and like Fox News, when they were actually like a news outlet that just didn't talk politics 24/7, like was weird. Like you forget that they were actually on the ground covering a lot of these other outside of politics news stories like this one. And there they were at his home and a couple other instances from that. But it was just weird seeing him in that context.
Yeah, and I you bring up a good point, because I post a lot of old video, like distant replay type highlights on our Twitter page if you don't follow us there, and I stumble across every now and again like CNN sports segments. Yeah, like you bring up Fox Sport, Fox News, how they would cover different stories other than politics. Like, it's crazy how much that landscape has changed. You never see that now.
I know, it's nuts, but they were there. And then from that point forward, that's when kind of everything unraveled for Tiger. Cat was out of the bag. There was no stopping it at that point. Elin knew, and people started coming forward. And I felt bad for the way Rachel got treated, right? I mean, listen, she was obviously in the wrong too, but man, the media, well, not even say the media, the paparazzi, man, it's just like a different animal. Listen to those guys, the ways they would talk to her. And, so she did seem like a little bit of a victim in some of this from that aspect. But I mean, overall, I don't feel bad for her with the way things went down. I mean, the fact that she seemed to think she was in this, she was the one for Tiger. I mean, all that fantastical, world that she was living in is crazy, but just really wild to see how those next few weeks played out. But I mean, every single girl that was involved eventually, well, we think most girls came out and found their own platform. Extra, I think somebody went on Howard Stern. There's a few other outlets. Like, everybody kind of had an exclusive with one of these girls.
Yeah, and it was like, oh, another one came out today. Another one came out yesterday. Another one's coming out next week with Matt Lauer. You know what I mean? Like, just which the irony there, Matt Lauer,
right,
being involved. But look, Rachel, you could tell some of the questions they asked her, the paparazzi, just yelling it out loud. I can't imagine how that makes you feel, especially when, look, you could argue, was she morally wrong for doing what she did with Tiger, but she didn't commit a crime.
Right.
And she was really, really drugged through the mud. So it's weird. I don't necessarily feel bad for her, because I think she knew what she was doing. She didn't get into it unknowingly. But I think the visceral reaction probably took her by surprise. And you could tell she still has a lot of scars from it today. And
to that point too, Elin, things weren't easy for her either with the media and the paparazzi. I mean, that's even got to be tougher. She's taking care of the kids and they're yelling at her with her kids. It's just pretty despicable. But it's kind of what it is in that world. So this is kind of the darkest point for Tiger too. I mean, everything's falling apart. He's got to apologize. What do you think of the apology? We go back and watch that now a second time, and it's cringeworthy.
Ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And the guy, the friend, Pete McDaniel, he hit it on the head. The press conference was odd. Whoever was, I don't know who his inner circle was at this time. I'm sure he had an agent or a manager or PR specialist who were counseling him. He was apologizing like he broke the law.
Right.
It was crazy to me at the time when it happened, and even crazier looking back on it. This is almost 2 months after the incident. He has his press conference, by the way.
I don't know if this was a thing to kind of save advertising and save money. Like, let me just try to clean the air here, clear the air, and keep perception of me as clean as possible. I don't know if that was it, but I mean, the fact that he apologized like he had committed a crime was a little ridiculous.
Yeah, look, time and winning, letting time pass and winning golf tournaments would have taken care of all this.
Yeah, and just handle it internally. I mean, that's what you do, right? I mean,
2 months after, you're having a press conference, bringing it up again and making it national news again.
Yeah.
It didn't make any sense to me. I agree with that Pete McDaniel. Like, I don't think it's only everyone's business in a situation like this if Tiger's making it other people's business.
Yeah. So only a few months later, too, he decides to play in the Masters. And again, the big part of this documentary was the way the Masters kind of handled it, too, in terms of, hey, let's make a public spectacle out of Tiger and the fact that he's coming to our tournament and we expect better out of this guy when he plays here. Again, I don't remember this at all really happening in the moment. like made a big deal out of. But now in retrospect and hearing kind of some other perspectives, it is very, very odd that they would have this press conference. Would they do this for anybody else? And in what other sport would you see an event stand out there and call out one of the competitors that are coming to play at their event?
Let me ask you this, Ben, because this is the only part of the documentary where I actually got kind of pissed. How much money did Billy Payne make because of Tiger Woods, do you think? If you had to ballpark it.
I don't even know.
Maybe hundreds, maybe tens of millions the Masters made. Maybe hundreds of millions.
A lot of money. Very, very much.
And let's not forget how much Tiger Woods made everyone in golf, what the sport was before him, how he bridged, a lot of stuff his dad talked about. Let's be fair, Tiger Woods did, okay, and delivered on. And for him to be treated that way by Billy Payne at that press conference was ridiculous.
Yep.
Could you picture Roger Goodell having a press conference where the week before the Super Bowl, where he's outlining all the indiscretions of the people on either team and apologizing for them and saying he holds them to higher standards? What the reaction of that would be?
Yeah, right. That'd be hilarious.
I mean, this is a pile on is what this is.
Yeah.
Is everyone's getting their kind of 2 cents in on morally what they think Tiger did wrong, and I'm going to get mine into. And I was taken aback. I had forgotten all about this, and it was ridiculous.
Yeah, I don't remember it. And yeah, it should have been as simple as, hey, Tiger's been through a lot. We're glad to see him back here. Hopefully, he's changed, but we welcome him back here, and hopefully we can all move forward. And that should have been the end of it. But to lecture him like that was pretty absurd.
How about this? I'm not gonna discuss the players playing in the tournament and their personal and marriage situations. Talk to them about it.
Well, yeah. That's
simple as that. Done and done.
Yeah, that's too easy, Mike. But yeah, so that was a big part of it. But he comes back and he finished 4th in this tournament, which was incredible with everything he's going through at that point and dealing with. He was able to still perform at that high of a level. And then he decides, I'm going to take a little bit of time off. And this is kind of where we got crazy, because he steps away and Steve Williams says, hey, I don't know what Tiger's going to be doing. When's he going to play again? I have no clue. I'm going to go and to caddy for Adam Scott, and a guy I know, friend of mine, both Australian. It's okay. They got kind of the clearance from Tiger and his people. Hey, it's okay. No big deal. And then as soon as he does it, Tiger says, "You're fired," which I thought. And again, I think he's dealing with so much at this point. Like, this is definitely his darkest point. But I don't think I'd ever really heard that it played out like that, where he got the okay, then shut it down.
Yeah, see, I have a problem with that. If he had told Steve Williams from word one, like, hey, look, I don't want you working for Adam Scott, and if you do it, like, we're going to have to part ways, that would have been different. But after you're given assurances that it's okay, then you let Adam Scott know, presumably, hey, I'll be your caddy. Tiger said it's okay. And then to go back on that, I had a problem with that. And this begins a period of Tiger's life where he's pushing away people that are really close to him.
Well, it's very much like his relationships in the past too. Like, this is a guy
with the high school girlfriend,
right? This is a guy that he was the best man in the wedding for Steve Williams, and this is the way it ends.
And look, besides for Earl Woods, when I think of like a sidekick for Tiger, I think of Steve Williams. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I still think of him as the caddy, even more so than like Fluff, who was his first caddy, and the guy he's had now, Joe. But yeah, I mean, this is he was there through all the high points for Tiger. And he still takes a lot of credit for it, so whatever in that respect. But yeah, this was kind of sucked the way it all played out. But again, this is a very difficult time for Tiger's life. So now he's kind of dealing with the health, his relationships, trying to get this all figured out, manage his life. He's got young kids, trying to get that figured out. He's dealing with the media. He comes back though after the knee surgery, and he's kind of dealing with all that. He gets back and he's playing pretty well. In fact, like they were saying, like, he's playing about as good as he has. And this is the part I had forgotten in terms of just how good a golf he was playing in early 2013 when he came back. Like, he was winning all over the place. Like, in my mind, I kind of had this, okay, as soon as this kind of the scandal hit, it was just a very, very bad period of time until about a year or two ago. But, in fact, there was actually this really bright spot until his back got hurt. And that's kind of when his whole career fell apart. But man, so much stuff happened so fast in a matter of like 5 years. It's incredible looking back on it.
It is. You remember the highlights, like you said. You remember the highlights, but you need to kind of that's where this documentary did fill in the gaps where you thought it was kind of all bad for him during this. Let's say before his most recent reemergence. The previous decade was all really bad for him, but there were some bright spots sprinkled in there.
Yeah, and so 13 he comes back, and that's when he hurts his back, and we've seen the highlights where he could, he went down to a knee after a swing and couldn't walk and had to withdraw from a couple of tournaments and just could not get it together. And then he kind of battles back. We see he comes back to play, but then he's got the yips. I mean, this period, and I remember thinking back, like when I worked in radio in Tuscaloosa and would talk to a guy that had one of the shows there, is also a golf guy, enjoyed golf and enjoyed Tiger. We talked about it, like at that point, I think I'd put the over-under. Do you think he'll ever, like, the over-under for majors in his career the rest of the way, like at a half? And we had a debate, like, would he win another one? That's how bad it had gotten. Is this guy ever have a chance to win another one with the way he's playing, with his health? As we find out, forget about the yips, the mental part of it. I mean, he's in such bad shape that at the 2017 Masters, he actually tells Jack Nicklaus that he thinks his career's done.
Yeah, and other than Jordan versus LeBron, the eternal sports debate show argument is, will Tiger ever win another major? Right?
Yeah,
that's like the question. Even though we're so many years past his prime, and even leading up to the Masters that we'll eventually get to in a second here later in his career, that was always the question. I was not aware of that moment of him telling Jack Nicklaus that either. Yeah,
that happened at the Champions dinner. He's sitting down with Jack, and at that point, I mean, he's having hard. He can't sit still because he's, his back and his lower extremities are hurting, and he cannot get comfortable, which is what kind of led to his drug abuse, his prescription drug problem, where he can't sleep. There's probably a lot racing through his mind every night, plus the pain. All this compounds, and all of a sudden, he's taken 5 different medications when he's pulled over, and that's one of the scariest moments too, Mike. And that. I don't know how much you knew about the details of that arrest when he was, intoxicated and pulled over, just kind of parked on the side of the road, not too far from his home in Jupiter, Florida. When the cops came up and asked him, "Hey, do you know where you are?" And he told him he thought he was driving back home in Orange County. He thought he was in Orange County traveling across the country, but here he was in Florida. He had completely out of it. And then even when they told him, "Hey, we want you to recite the alphabet backwards. Do you know what we're asking you?" And he says, don't sing the national anthem backwards. And it's like, man, this guy was out of it. Luckily there was nobody hurt, himself or anybody else.
That's where my mind went. Tiger Woods dealt with the repercussions from this, as he should. But whenever you see someone that messed up, your first thought is, thankfully no one else was hurt. And Jupiter, Florida, low key, a very hot spot for celebrities behaving badly. Yeah, this Tiger Woods incident. Yeah, I think the incident when Tony La Russa fell asleep at the stoplight when he was drunk.
That was down there too.
That was down there because that's where the Cardinal spring training is, in Jupiter, Florida.
Okay.
And then you had the Robert Kraft masseuse incident. That's in Jupiter as well.
Gotcha. Okay.
Beautiful place, by the way.
Yeah, a lot of money down there. A lot of money.
Yeah. Beautiful place. Go catch some spring training down there one time. It's a good time.
So I guess is it safe to say that was rock bottom for Tiger? Right, yes. Going into rehab. I think it was in Hattiesburg, Mississippi. I think there was actually a picture somebody got of him outside of there at one point. Probably invading his privacy there. But just kind of remember that whole time frame. But we're talking about now. I mean, this guy's going through divorce, the scandals, can't play, he's hurt, he's injured, don't know if his career is going to ever recover. I think at this point in his mind, he's just like, man, I just want to live a comfortable life, and I'd be happy with that. He starts the comeback, right? Starts to hit a couple balls, posts a couple shots to social media, and these things blew up when he posted them. Tiger fans rejoice. This guy is coming back. He's got a golf swing that looks okay. All right, he's not in pain. Maybe the spinal fusion surgery is actually going to work, and we slowly start seeing him coming back. And he's kind of put this behind him. But with the return, Mike, he's happy now. It seems legitimately seems that he is enjoying life and he's got a different perspective. And we see that immediately when he's on the course, where he's interacting with competitors, with fans, everything. Yeah. So first of all, have you ever known someone who's had really bad back issues and gets corrective surgery? Nobody close. No.
Oh, so I have. And the relief on their face that they're not in pain anymore, I saw with Tiger.
Yeah.
Which was cool to see. But you hit it on the head. He kind of started focusing more on things that probably matter from a living a quality life standpoint. And the relationships he has with guys on tour seem better now from the outside looking in. Him interacting with fans seems a little more cordial than it was. I follow the Barstool golf guys. I don't know if you do.
Yeah.
But even like they had a moment at one of the tournaments where the three of them, they met Tiger Woods,
Right.
and just little things like that you would never happen, early on in his career when he was in his prime. So it is good to see, because you have now. Tell me what you think, because you're more plugged in day to day in golf. Tiger Woods sort of being more of an ambassador for. Now he's still a good player, you know what I'm saying, but being an ambassador for the game, combined with all these younger stars sort of taking it to the next level, I think has really helped the game of golf.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's different stages. He helped elevate it to the money making machine that it was. Then, he kind of brought all these. He's the reason why so many of these great athletes play golf now, right? They saw him growing up, and now they wanted to be like him and compete against him. And then his resurgence has just added kind of another dimension to it, to golf. And when we saw that with, as I mentioned, the 2018 Tour Championship, where he was in Atlanta and he actually had his first win back. And that's when like everybody in the gallery was walking about 100 deep behind him, like one of the most incredible scenes of golf that we saw in this documentary. And that was kind of like hey, we honestly never thought we'd see this return. And he's playing, this is a smaller field, but he's playing against the top 30 players in the PGA, and he's able to win and pull this thing off. And it's going, wow, this is actually going to happen. This is an incredible finished story. Like the comeback is pretty much complete now. If he wins again, another major, great. But then we see like the next year in 2019, the Masters, and that's still one of the most improbable wins ever. And one that I still haven't gone back and watched that final round again, and we'll probably do so. Maybe we'll do it for the show at some point. But the fact that he was able to overcome those guys, and probably the most remarkable moment in this documentary was Armin Katayan. That
was great. Armin Katayan, who was very critical of Tiger, by the way. He was not. It was not all like, I'm a golf homer and I'm only going to talk about what the good things about Tiger. He was very critical about Tiger in this documentary. But I think the part you're talking about, Ben, is basically all these younger guys saying, looking forward to the day where they could be, in the last, the final round, being near Tiger Woods in a major and sort of stare him down.
Yep.
And Armin Katayan basically say, yeah, fuck you do.
Right.
until you're actually doing it. And so we'll see what happens then.
Yep. And we saw they showed the highlights of guys going in the water at Amen Corner, the par 3 12th. And that was the turning point in the day. Tiger was in the mix, but that's when he kind of propelled himself to the top of that leaderboard. And when everybody, I think, realized, okay, this may actually happen. I think there's a lot of, hopefully it can happen, but there's just so many good players ahead of him that it's unlikely, but at least he's there in the mix. But then he came out, and then you had one of the great moments of all time with him hugging his son, Charlie. And when I saw his celebration after the Masters win was so much different than everything else. It was such a sense of relief and accomplishment, and just that huge, all that burden, everything that he had been through, going back to starting probably in Vegas, right? And then his dad dying and all that stuff, all the way to where we are now. Just that sense of I finally got back here and won. He appreciates it a lot more, man. And I thought that was one of the best moments I've seen from his career. And then they intertwined that, obviously, with him hugging his dad and his first major, now to hugging his son, 22 years later. Pretty incredible scene. And yeah, it was one that I'll always remember, and I think most sports fans will always remember.
Yeah, and as we've gone through countless times here in these 2 episodes, I'm a casual golf fan, but that's still a sporting event I'll never forget. Now, a lot of the stuff he was involved in was self-inflicted. It was his fault. We get all that. But from a sports moment, his perspective, we're all shaped by our past experiences, and his past experiences led him to that moment where he really, really appreciated it, the winning, and not only that, but the hugging of his son afterwards, to being able to enjoy it with his family. And, getting back to the actual tournament, what I think is a unique way to look at it is you have these players now, these young guys that Tiger Woods is cordial with. Right? He's nice to him. He's this. He'll take some time to talk to him, but then he flips that switch in the last round of a golf tournament. And I can't help but think these younger guys looking at him like, wow, what is this? I've never seen this before. And it gets in their head. I think that's a real thing.
Oh, that definitely is. Definitely is.
But yeah, so it's we always like it when our athletes, we feel like they appreciate us as fans. They appreciate the situation they're in and don't take it for granted. And I think that's the Tiger Woods you're getting now in this phase of his life.
Yep. And I don't know if we'll ever see him win another one. The more I look back on that, I think the more I kind of feel like that was the final moment. Just when we think about his entire career, and then in 30 years, I'm thinking like you look back at that and go, man, that was even more incredible than we ever thought. The fact that he was actually to come back and win one in the midst of like golf being as good as it was, and in that moment winning that and seeing his son there and all that, I think it's going to be such a bigger deal in 30 years. I hope he wins a couple more. It'd be awesome to see. But I still think that might have been it. It kind of felt like that in the moment, like we're watching the end in a historical moment that I just feel like that's how it's all going to play out. But I did think that documentary, it ended right there. Like it ended pretty quickly. I was kind of surprised that there was no real conclusion. It was like, okay, he's back. Great to have you guys on the documentary. We're gone.
Yeah, that was a strange way to end it. And it's one of these things where it seems like in golf these days, tell me if I'm wrong, that there's more quality players that could potentially win these major championships than there was maybe 15, 20 years ago when he was in his heyday. Do I have that right? Yeah,
I think the depth of sport is,
that's what I mean.
And because he had such an advantage on people with his length. Like that's kind of been neutralized a little bit, where everybody kind of has that. There's a couple guys
and the fitness and the fitness. All these guys are in good shape now.
You don't have as many hefties out there.
You don't. I mean, I remember going to the GHO. It used to be called the GHO. Now it's the Travelers Championship. It's usually played the week after the U.S. Open.
Right.
Do you remember? Does Retief Goosen still play or no?
Yeah, he's still out there. He's on the senior tour now, though.
Okay,
Champions
so
tour,
it was the week after he won the U.S. Open, I believe. He won the U.S. Open or the Masters.
Right.
He won one of those. It's either right after he won the U.S. Open or the year he won the Masters. Me and one of our other buddies, Art, followed him around. And this guy's like straight up smoking Marlboro Lights in between holes. And he just won like the biggest tournament there was,
Yeah.
That always stuck with me. And it doesn't seem like that kind of stuff happens anymore.
Yeah, there was a stretch where he was he had like a 3-year stretch where he was almost unbeatable. Like he was awesome. Retief Goosen, I'm talking about. And he looked like he'd have been like your accountant too, like that's what he looked like.
Yeah,
but
he looked like a guy who'd be golfing at like your local club. Like he just got done with doing a couple tax returns, and now he's going to shoot 18.
Exactly. So it was overall a good documentary. I enjoyed watching it. Didn't learn a ton. Now I don't know if that's just because I had read some stuff on him already, but I think it could have definitely. I think he could have a documentary that's the length of The Last Dance. I would love to see more stuff early in his career, see more of the, talk about more of his career and how good he was. I mean, we got a little sense of that, but the dominance there. But I know they weren't trying to accomplish all that. It's kind of a quick look at the ups and downs, but I think it was good. I would like to see a little bit deeper.
I think to get a deeper one, though, it's going to have to be like a Tiger approved one because you need more people to interview.
True.
I think that's the issue. But I thought overall this was average.
Okay.
It was exactly what I was expecting it was going to be. Not better, not worse.
Okay, fair enough. Well, that'll conclude us here. We enjoy go back on documentaries and recapping them. We'd love to hear from you, your thoughts. Connect with us on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. Read the comments there. Reply to you there as much as we can. And you can find everything online at distantreplaypodcast.com. We'll get back into some more games. We got some true crime coming. Plenty more on the docket on Distant Replay. So hit subscribe, rate and review, tell a friend, share the podcast, anything you can do to help continue to grow us. We would appreciate it. And thanks again for helping us get over 1,000 subscribers.
Until next time.